But nevertheless, so basically Wardlow loses his first match. He's knocked out with the diamond ring. All these heels just willy-nilly allowed to run rampant on him. And at the end of this whole segment, the announcers pitched, up next, the Hardys are back together. Like, up next, the weather report. And therein lies the problem. Matt and Jeff Hardy wrestled the next television match against Private Party, Mark Quinn and Isaiah Cassidy, Matt's old proteges. Matt and Jeff Hardy reunited in the wrestling ring for the first time in what was it? Was it 4 years or 5 years? However many years it's been. The reunion on free television, not pay-per-view. The reunion match against underneath guys, not main event stars, was announced via a press release from Tony Khan at 2:30 Eastern time, the afternoon of the fucking show.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I didn't see that.
Oh, I saw it on PW Insider. It popped up. Guess what? Tony Khan has just released a press release. The Hardys will be wrestling tonight in 5.5 hours on free television. Oh my, none of these people have ever been involved in promotion before. Hey, Brian, the greatest thing that's ever happened is going to happen tomorrow at 3:00, and tickets are only $2. The problem is, if you only hear it the next day after it happened, it doesn't matter how much the tickets were, or whether it was free, or what happened, because it's already over with. That's why when you have something like this, you build it. I talked about an angle they could have done to make the Hardys reunion and confrontation with the Hardley boys. They're doppelgangers in that company, and people would have probably been interested in that. They didn't do that. They decided we're going to start the Hardy boys off with an underneath tag team, and they'll find out why that nostalgia has a law of diminishing returns, and you start with the hottest thing you can and you work your way down rather than the other way around. But then they don't even build it for a pay-per-view or even a future date that they can advertise on free television, or do promos for a week or two on TV building up to it, where, my God, can you imagine what's going to happen when the Hardys get back together against so-and-so? Tony Khan sends out a press release 5.5 hours before the bell rings. Yeah, the Hardys going to be back together. So all the people that saw that press release were already going to be watching that television program, because anybody watching for the wrestling news between 3:00 and 8:00 is already going to be watching fucking AEW and already going to be seeing that program. But all the people out there who have given up on wrestling, who used to be Hardy Boys fans, who might, I don't know, crazy go wild theory, watch to see them again after all these years, they probably heard about it 2 days after the fact, because they don't live their life on the wrestling news sites, because wrestling is such a letdown and a fucking tragedy for them anymore. So, Hardys versus Private Party. And now, after being a weaselly, crooked manager who steals money from his guys and signs them to outlandish one-sided contracts, and or the guy that teleports himself and changes clothes in an ice machine, now suddenly he's his normal self again, dressed like they used to dress when they were the Hardy Boys. Apparently he's had one of those shock treatments. Got him back in the right frame of mind.
Maybe he went into one of those ice machines and he's able to come back out as his old self.
Alternate dimensions.
That's right.
Should be lowered expectations. They did all the Hardy Boy stuff, and the people popped for Jeff just breathing or grabbing a headlock. If Jeff looked at him, they popped. Not so much for Matt, because he's been there, and they've gotten tired of him because he's not done anything interesting at all. And he had sympathy when they gave him brain damage, tried to kill him in those matches, and then they made him an underneath manager with wishy-washy fucking talent. And now it's like, no, unless it was like, remember Sid and Spivey when the Skyscrapers had that pay-per-view match? Spivey'd get in, and they don't care if he fucking saved a baby from a burning building. They farted at it. Sid got in and farted, and the people gave him a standing ovation. That's what we had going on here. And I'm gobsmacked. They wasted this on a bullshit TV match because the Hardys are as hot as they're going to be. That's what when a team gets back together that people have been waiting to see like that in the anticipation. Now's the time to strike because they're in their 40s and they're not going to get any more over with what they can do in the ring. It's just not going to happen. Not with them or anybody else in that position. Tony Schiavone said that Matt and Jeff Hardy had more than 700 matches as a team. They've been in the business 25 fucking years. That was 2 years worth of matches for the Road Warriors of the Rock and Roll Express or the Midnight Express. Certainly to God, he just pulled that statistic out of his ass and that's not real. How can they have only teamed together 700 times in 20-something years?
That can't be right.
That can't be right. So anyway, now they've seen the Hardys. The new is off of the reunion aspect, and they can barely handle Private Party because this was competitive. And they got heat on Matt. Mark Quinn almost killed him with that cannonball dive to the floor. Did you see that? Far from missing him, he fucking flattened him.
Well, I think the Hardys got even with any slights they felt with Jeff Swanton at the end.
We'll get there in a second. But Matt hits the tag to Jeff, gets a big pop, even though it was a cold tag. It was a hot tag by virtue of the fact they just wanted to see Matt. And he makes a comeback, and they do a 4-way, and they do an awkward setup to Jeff being up on top, and the announcers call, here's the Swanton. He did a splash and got a 2 count. And then all the momentum came to a halt. And then they did a contrived gymnastics spot where Private Party does that thing where they try to flip over the other partner on the apron and they come back in and skin the cat. I don't know what the fuck. I couldn't tell whether the finish was fucked up and Jeff just went up and said, I'm not going to do the Swanton here or what the fuck. But they did this contrived thing. But the Hardys hit stereo twists of fate. And then Jeff goes up to the top rope for the Swanton on Cassidy. And I don't care if you've potated somebody in a match and they need a receipt or you need a receipt, that's one thing. But he could have killed this fucking guy. That Swanton landed with every bit of his weight ass first on top of poor old Cassidy. Yeah.
Was that what happened, or was it Mo, Larry, and Shemp based on that sound effect?
Well, that's what happened inside Isaiah Cassidy's innards. Good God. And I mean, what would possess? I'll tell you what, if a motherfucker ever came off the ropes and landed on me like that, that'd be the last time I would ever lay there for that son of a bitch. And and that's the way it used to be. If there wasn't this just, well, I don't care how many people he lands on or caves. And I'm not talking about Jeff Hardy. He's not noted for being, just spreading injury and disease wherever he goes. But I'm talking about anybody. These guys, they just lay there for these guys to make this shit up. A double 450-degree cannonball or a twisting pike position or what. And there's no way you can even see where you're going. I would have laid there for Bobby Eaton all day long. I wouldn't lay in the middle of that ring for any of these fucking guys come off the top on me for 15 fucking seconds. Because they don't deserve the privilege of people giving themselves to them. Because they're trying to make it too fancy. and two fucking, oh, well, now we've done the triple Lindy, so let's do it while blindfolded. Fuck you. What'd you think of this match? Is the bloom already off the Hardy Rose? Oh, I forgot the afterbirth. Here comes Andre Ole Ole O, Jose, the butcher, the baker, the bunny, for whatever purpose she was serving. The heels surround the ring with criminal intent in mind. More music plays. Here comes Darby and Sting out with a skateboard and a baseball bat, and nothing happens. And the heels leave. Now your thoughts on this match. Is the bloom off the Hardys already now that they've seen it and see now that they're not the Hardy boys, they're the Hardy middle-aged men?
I think whatever bloom there was is off the rose. Now there'll just be another popular tag team on the roster. But the problem is, this was how they were used for their first ever match. The other problem is, coming out of it, it appears they're going to continue to work with Andrade.
Yes.
And the Butcher and the Blade. This is not in any way how I would have used the Hardy Boys if I had them on my roster. You reunited the Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah, I did.
Who'd you book him against? Did you just book him against some...
No, I booked him against Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden, the stud stable, who were the number 2 heel team in the company, so that they could win over them while the Heavenly Bodies were defeating Bobby and Jackie Fulton, the Fantastics, so that 2 unbeaten teams would then go for the tag team title. And honestly, Ricky and Robert had a lot more time left to go then when I reunited them in Smoky Mountain Wrestling than the Hardy Boys do now, because in case people, how old are Matt and Jeff Hardy right now? Give me their ages.
I'll look it up.
Because a lot of people may forget, since Ricky and Robert had been on top for so long, they were still in their mid-30s when I reunited them in Smoky Mountain Wrestling. I think, what did we figure? Robert was 35 and Ricky was 37 at one point. We figured that, or was it? No, were they younger?
We can find that. We can find that out in a moment.
Ricky is 65 right now that he admits to. So so that means that that basically Ricky Morton, when he reunited with Robert Gibson in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, was 35 or 36 years old.
Matt Hardy is 47.
Uh-huh.
And Jeff is 44.
So they're 10 years older than the Rock and Roll Express were when they reunited Smoky Mountain Wrestling. And
that's crazy. That's crazy. They seem so much older. I know.
That's why I'm saying you're on borrowed time here. Nostalgia and the name value and the goodwill that the Hardys have built up over all this time in the wrestling business. Don't waste it. Don't show people that they can't do what they could do physically 20 years ago. Don't put them in the ring with underneath teams to give them a good win. Reunite them with a personal issue and put them in the ring with the top guys you can, because your clock is ticking. And from this point forward, the more that people see the Hardys, the more they're going to be able to see through and see they're not what they used to be because of age and infirmity.
Sad we didn't get an Andrade promo. I'm starting to really get a kick out of those.
That's your perverted sense of humor. I should have figured you'd be something.
You want me to make you laugh with my perverted sense of humor?
Yes.
After these Andrade promos? Here's something you probably haven't thought of. What the fuck does he talk about with Charlotte Flair? What are those conversations? But anyway, I'll let you continue.
I had a bee stink me.
A bee stink me. He enunciates everything.